My name's Sandy.
Sorry.
That's all right. My name is Sandy Story. I'm a member of Jamaica Pond Poets, which is the sponsor of Chapter and Verse. Chapter and Verse is in its 27th year, and it's called Chapter and Verse because we feature poets and prose at many of our readings. Tonight we have 3 poets, but often we have at least one prose writer. In the invitation you received in email form, at the bottom of each person's bio is how to order their book. In addition, periodically, I post in chat how to order the book. So you're welcome to consult either or both of those to figure out how to do that. Tonight, we have 3 readers. We have Maureen McElroy, we have Brian Simoneau, and Frannie Lindsay. We've been proud to have this series as Susanna's background shows. We usually have it in the Loring Greeno house. Ta-da! And it's a lovely place to meet, but we've decided to continue this way because of we all know why for a while. Maureen is our first reader. She grew up in Boston as one of 7 children. In high school, she published her first poem in 17 magazines. She attended Boston University and holds an MFA from Emerson College. Her chapbook, Car Poems, from Finishing Line Press, came out in March 2020. Her work has appeared in numerous literary magazines, including Nix's Mate, Mother's Always Right, Tramp Set, Fickle Muses, Literary Hatchet, and IO. She taught English and Latin for a number of years before entering a career in real estate. She owns Jamaica Hill Realty in Jamaica Plain. Welcome, Maureen. Looking forward to hearing you.
Thank you so much for the invitation. I'm greatly honored to be here. And as Sandy said, my chapbook came out at the worst possible time, March 20th of 2020, a week after we went into lockdown. So I haven't had a lot of opportunities to read from it live. So I'm going to read a number of poems from my chapbook and then some newer ones. This is the title poem, Car Poems. Some people have sex in cars like Cadillacs or little red Corvettes with the seats rolled back and write songs about it. But I write poems in cars. My Corolla poems, my Mini Cooper poems, my Kia Soul poems, getting pulled over for writing while driving poems, rear view rhymes, stuck in traffic, last gasp, angry poems, cup holders and couplets, speed bumps and alliteration, rolling windows down in the city cacophony, inspiring me, driving me. Stop signs and stanza breaks. I take the roads less traveled and the dark alleys, the cut-throughs. I write in windshield condensation, reach under the seats to find a pen, a napkin, a bank slip, a receipt, to get my words down that travel with me to my next destination. Wait. After seeing the number on the scale, I swore off pasta and wine and all things white. I closed my eyes and envisioned myself as a leaf tossed about by the wind, as dry and crunchy underfoot as a potato chip. I swore off salt and bubbles. Oxygen was all I would take in, oxygen and music, and I started spinning until I grew too weak to dance. Then I went out and bought a larger pair of pants. My trip to California. Do you remember that time in Haight-Ashbury where we met on the corner, turned into amoebas, altered our shapes, ate cookies and pad thai? My hair was waist length and curly, your beard luxurious. We wore sunglasses and little else. I was a painted lady, peace sign on my belly. My hips were glorious. Janice sang with Jimmy, and I read my poetry to the anarchists, and they snapped for me. Even the dogs were tie-dyed and smelled of patchouli. Everyone had the munchies, but no one went hungry. We lay down on blankets. No one owned us or the land. Love was legal. Joy was legal. It was the summer of love, and life was anointing me with tranquility and chai tea. Do you remember that time? Neither do I. Stalker. His love for me is so great that it is beyond words, beyond expression, beyond the realms of this universe. It is a silent love that resides in his eyes, behind his sunglasses, behind cataracts. It is a secret, sexy hush love, below a whisper that only I can hear or feel its palpitations. Beyond the coding, beyond the pale. So much love that it is trapped really inside a grenade without a key. And only I have this sixth sense of its existence because we are connected on another plane. And that plane will take us away to a tropical deserted island that is right for just us and a chef and housekeeper and mangoes, lots of mangoes and a ukulele. His love can come alive there and I will bask in all that light on me, if only he would see. Sundays at Bickford's. I remember Sundays at Bickford's when we were first dating. We smelled of each other's skin and our lips were raw. My 580 square foot condo was just enough space. The waitress called you honey in a voice that rasped from 3 packs a day. You ate a dumpling the size of my head, but you stayed thin and muscular because you woke at dawn to work construction on Beacon Hill. That was the happiest time in my life before it closed, and now the walls of our 3 bedrooms start to close in on me, and the rasp in my voice is from shouting. Still, I find myself on any given Sunday making Belgian waffles and French toast, bacon and pancakes all day, wanting nothing more than maple syrup and you. Moonlight. Is it dark yet? We glow then. You capture me in a glass jar, and I shine for only you. Firelight, floating candles burn in the river of our devotion. We can move our hands then from shielding our eyes. We can move our clothes then from shielding skin. We can put shame to shame in the quiet when children are sleeping, when hair comes down and the harsh day is undone. Tomboy. I was a tomboy the summer I was 10. My father took me to a barber shop and made them chop off all my curls. So the old ladies at church called me he. I bounced rubber balls for hours against the brick wall of the Cunningham School. I wore long pants in the heat and ran so fast from all the boys who never caught me. I read Stephen King and lay down beneath headstones at the cemetery. I kept a locked diary and started writing poetry. I talked fast, I was a wise ass. I swung sticks, my fists were up, my nails were chewed down. I wore a blue felt fedora with a feather I pinched off a dead bird. I collected rocks like feldspar and pyrite, fool's gold, and drank from a garden hose. I rode my bike with no helmet, full speed down Sunnyside Street and through the woods behind the MDC pool, where the previous summer a stranger had molested me. But I'm sure it had nothing to do with that. Someone I used to shop with. The loss of me looks good on you. I saw you at the grocery. You were stocking up on frozen manly males and ice cream. Couldn't we all use a little artificial sweetness? You've picked up a new shuffle, a limp. You've grown a beard and it's gray. You've lost some weight under your eyes, in your wallet, below the waist. No more balls and chain, No one to care, to stand up on her toes to kiss you. All those little inconveniences of sharing bodies and beds and meals. You fill your trunk, whistle to your dog, Jake, who's heading the other way. The loss of me looks good on you. I saw you today. You didn't see me. Excuse me. Punchline. It was St. Patrick's Day. The waitress had green hair and a t-shirt that said, "Kiss me and I'll punch you." An alcoholic walked into a bar. It wasn't funny. Tempers flared. The band played 4 Green Fields. I sat next to you on a stool. We both had blue eyes and curly hair. Our connection ended there. The place smelled of cabbage and sweat. A poet took the stage like Yeats risen from the grave. I cried tears of yellow mustard and green beer. Ireland is so much more than that. One grandfather came from County Clare and worked as a bartender. One came from County Cork and worked 6 days a week driving a trolley so his son could go to Harvard. They died before I was born. One was disowned from a great fortune. One made bathtub beer during Prohibition. The waitress was in law school. The 4 fields were paved over in the name of progress. The green washes out of our hair, blue eyes and curls. An alcoholic walked into a bar. St. Patrick was Italian. The band played, "Kiss Me and I'll Punch You." The t-shirt came off. The poet got up on stage. Someone needs a bathtub. Someone needs a beer. Someone needs a lawyer. It's not funny. The next 2 are companion poems. First one, Friends. Let's stay friends, you say, and I say yes, the kind with benefits, the kind who room together and tell each other everything. Besties, BFFs, blood buddies. You would give me an organ, donate your sperm. You'd call me first when good was happening, when you were in need. You would put in my air conditioner, make me laugh through my nose, wear the other half of my heart around your neck, write my eulogy. Tell me that is what you mean. From the person who said, let's stay friends. I only suggested staying friends to cushion the blow of my leaving you. I'm taking all the furniture, the vintage turntable, the Nina Simone. I meant let's stay the kind of friends who never see each other again. The kind who send a yearly Christmas card with just a signature, no loving valediction. Lose my number, keep your whole heart, your snorting laugh and failing kidneys. Invest in central air conditioning. I'll still come to your funeral if I'm not too busy, and I'll wear my dancing shoes. In lieu of flowers. Bring cash, bring wine. Tell me I'm gorgeous a few hundred times. Bring chewy chocolate chip cookies. Rub my feet, paint my face, clean out my house and pay the bills. Become a shock absorber, a tissue attendee. Fill my refrigerator with pastries, cheese. Bathe me, cover me in blankets until the bone-deep shivers stop. Hold me when I wake at odd hours of the night. Wrap your arms around me when I am racked with grief. Bring string and turn me into a marionette so I can dance again. In 2018, Theresa May appointed a minister for loneliness in the UK, Madam Crouch. And this is what I think she does. The Minister for Loneliness. The Minister for Loneliness has banned the poetry of Anne Sexton and TV dinners. She has shut off power to the villages so that all must gather in the town square to hold hands and sing like the Who's in Whoville. She has parachuted puppies, created dog parks to rival Tivoli Gardens, shrunken spaces for maximum bumping, sent out robocalls of compliments, established bring your senior to school days, turned timeouts into time-ins. She has created incentives for carpooling, group housing, free matchmaking, music together for new parents and babies, beer halls, concerts on the common, festivals of light and antidepressants, hugging booths, volunteer companions, judgment-free zones. But at the end of every day, she just wants to be alone. There's just two more. This poem is about my mother who almost became a nun. Helen, you came out of the convent, left your white wimple and the stone walls of arthritic dampness, a silent order. You found so much to say in the world of David and 7 children. You sang all the songs from The Sound of Music, kept your hair short like Julie Andrews, screamed like a groupie when the Pope came to Boston. Christmas was midnight mass, you singing in the choir, a fat tree hung with homemade ornaments, a manger with the wise men coming from the West. Brandy-soaked fruitcake you never ate because you gave and gave everything away. As Alzheimer's took your memory later in life, out of habit, you were cloistered in the smallest bedroom in the house, taping up colorful images of women you had cut out of magazines. You always wanted sisters. I wouldn't be here if you had kept those other vows. I hope that now you and my dear father art in a heaven of your own making. And this last poem is for my father, who died last October. It's called Swimming. I see my father moving through water. He could swim for miles freestyle. 1, 2, 3, breathe. I see him in the frigid Atlantic of Carson Beach, floating on his back in a white rubber bathing cap, in his 90s getting whistled at by the women in senior swim at the Y. He had beautiful form. I still smell his chlorine cologne. He watches me through goggled eyes. He lived life in his own lane, the outside world muffled by the rhythm of his thoughts, powerful arms cutting the waves. I earned my stripes in water babies at 18 months, started swim team at 7, a dolphin in a teal bathing suit. Summer was diving off the docks at Hill Reservation. He gave me a life-saving skill and a love of the pool and the pond. The things my father taught me. Dive in, keep kicking, know what's behind you when you backstroke. If you hit a wall, flip. Our bodies are 60% water. Ash is not that to which we should return. I see my father swimming. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Maureen. Fabulous.
Thank you.
The next reader is Brian Simoneau. He's the author of the poetry collections No Small Comfort from Black Lawrence Press in 2021 and Riverbound, C&R Press 2014. His poems have appeared at Poetry Daily, Poets.org, and Verse Daily, and in journals including Boston Review, Cincinnati Review, Colorado Review, Crazy Horse, the Georgia Review, and Salamander. Originally from Lowell, Massachusetts, he teaches at Milton Academy and lives near Boston with his family. Brian, welcome.
Thanks very much, Sandy. Maureen, thank you for those poems. What a beautiful poem for your father. Thank you also to Frannie, who we'll hear from. I'm really honored to be reading with both of you. Prayer for something like a home. Let me learn to love this land, the lay of the highways, the maze of crooked one-ways cobbled together in colonial haste. Give me a place to linger, to wait for sirens to drown in distance, for wind to gust, its bluster among the maples almost mistaken for a forest song. If long winters claim me, let me come from cold and know myself by slogging toward home through snow. I will don the proper smock, wear a hair shirt molded to my bones, worn soft in all the right spots. If landscape once was sacramental, then let me dig in mud and dust. I'll smear its mark across my brow, wash my feet in moving waters when I step into the river. And let me never find the other side. Let me learn to name this green, that purple, chartreuse and lilac, lavender. Let me welcome ash gray skies as perfect background for colors coming out of nowhere. Gift we must let go of. So that's a poem. I wrote that poem shortly after coming back to Boston after living on the West Coast for a long time and feeling like it wasn't home anymore, and sort of trying to figure out where exactly. I grew up in Lowell and have lived in Western Massachusetts and Connecticut and Oregon and California and back to Boston and then to Connecticut again and now back up to Milton. And I've sort of bounced around and through it all, tried to figure out where exactly might home be and what would that feel like. And so this collection, No Small Comfort, is largely about that. It's about finding a way to be home. It's about starting a family and thinking about where I want that to call home. And so I'll read some of the poems about that. They span from California to Boston and a lot of places in between. Landscape with primary colors. California hills gone gold, summer sky blue enough to confuse, so clear, so sharp the contrast. But there should always be three, you say, and here I've said only yellow, clipped by imponderable blue. You missed it. Taking flight from a field of Spanish wheat, hackles streaked with blood, black sweep of raven, leaving behind a picked over carcass. Raven, who they say hunts with wolves and waits beside battlefields for the fallen to die, who they say can forecast rain, who created rivers and seas, who they say once sat at the sides of gods, whose white was burned black for stealing the sun and setting its light in a sky like this. Raven, whose croaks and caws when we're walking alone in the woods remind us we are tethered to this earth in ways that all of our gods are not. Ice on a dirt road. Ice on a dirt road doesn't glisten exactly, doesn't glint or flash, but pulls you in regardless. Pulls you in as you feel it start to spin you out and toward the bank. Water below, so slow, sluggish river rolling over bouldered bottom. So slow, you know it's almost frozen. Know how fast it would seep into bones, hold you under as skin turns numb. The rush of ripple and wave, unreal. Unable to feel so you wouldn't believe the sound. Till your heart in your ears beats. appeared. Then clouds, emptied, begin to break. And temperatures again threaten to drop. The road ready to do its worst, to remain a road once you've passed. Shortly after we moved back to Boston, the summer sort of had passed, and we arrived, and fall was beautiful, and then winter came. And it was one of those worst winters. The snow on sidewalks was up to people's shoulders as they walked around downtown. And our little, triple decker in Roslindale, we just had nowhere else to put the snow. And we already had a sense of what that spring was going to look like when all of the snow started to melt. And sure enough, there was a lot of cleanup, let's say, after that spring. Record flooding as metaphor for grief. Not the river rushing its banks and breaking dams, overrunning sandbags stacked in the hours before it crested. Not the unmeasured depth that wrecks a pickup and the tow truck grinding to haul it out. The mud brown wall that splinters trunks like twigs and rips up others, roots and all. Not the risen water, not the raging waves, but the basement, slowly gaining back its shape. 7 feet of muck pumped out, a foundation unhoused, 4 stone walls with only space to hold. The contents of boxes spilled and spoiled, photos and baby clothes soaking in sludge. All of it exposed, opened up to sky, the sudden sky and its cruel light, pouring through what used to be shelter, and nothing left to fill such a hole. The other thing that sort of happened around that time, that winter, actually, we had been living in California and I had been teaching. And of course, there were very few snow days, right? As in 0 snow days teaching in California. And I'd grown up in Massachusetts and looked forward to snow days. And so we were back now and it was winter and the forecast was for snow. And I was so excited that we were going to have snow day that I didn't do my grading that night. And at 10 o'clock, as I start to settle in for bed, I realize it hasn't started snowing yet. And I start to panic that I'm going to have to go to school completely unprepared. And I'm like that, I'm like that child all over again. I gambled and I lost. But as I looked out the window, I noticed a little boy across the street also looking out the window. And in that shared moment of connection, right? I kind of felt calm and I knew, no, it's going to start snowing and it's going to start. And by morning, this is all going to look so different. And so I sat down and I wrote this poem. I ultimately sent it to a friend who reads a lot of my first drafts, and she said, "Wow, this is a really powerful poem about the anxieties of fatherhood approaching." Because of course my wife was pregnant with our first child at the time, and I'd written this poem about a snowstorm coming and everything changing, and hadn't even once considered that maybe I was worried about becoming a dad. And of course, I'd written this poem that someone had to point out was probably really about that. In my mind, it was just a poem about the snow. And I've kind of left it that way. And I'll read that now. It's called "It Doesn't Show Signs of Stopping." It doesn't show signs of stopping. If morning arrives as expected, I'll shovel snow, make a path for neighborhood kids to shuffle down to the park, their plastic sleds in tow. Every trail of breath that lifts behind them, reminding me we're always leaving, already gone when we get there. The way snow starts to melt the moment it touches ground, the way a storm hits shore. For now, the kids across the street press their faces to fogged glass, wait for wheeling clouds to drop the first flake. They're only crossing fingers for no school. But it won't be long till they watch like me, sick and tired of season drifting into season under cover of darkness. So tonight, I'm trying not to fall asleep under pregnant skies, imagining how the end will come, the world we've always known hushed by oblivion's slow sifting down. The newness of old objects drifted to form, blinding cold, white light. Tomorrow, snowplows grinding to push back in place familiar shapes. I'll pull on boots and mittens to do the same, lifting and pitching until I scrape to surface. Cracked and frost-heaved concrete, plastic jug flattened in the gutter, tuft of yellowed crabgrass, crumb of frozen soil, soggy leftover leaves. Yes, when morning comes, I'll shovel and make a path. But for now, tonight, right this moment, nothing falls through the halos of lampposts, humming up and down the empty street. And even the every night sirens are silent. A held breath hangs in city light haze, as if we're always waiting for something. We always are, already on its way. To my child before she arrives. There is a man you will learn to call uncle. He will teach you the answers to many questions is land bridge. There will be truth in what he says. He will call you something other than your name, no matter what your name is. No matter what your name is, you might not like it. It is likely you will have lots of hair, likely in places you would not expect. I have always tried to play up my love for bears. So even body fat seems tribute to mothers who kill to protect their young. I hope I would do the same. Let's see what happens. Whatever happens, most of us feel we were born too late. But really, there are no good old days. Some days, there will only be swallowed silence and sobbing. The world is not always kind and rarely makes sense. So when the sun goes down, we will sing our songs and talk about mourning. Mountain ranges rise from valleys and forests make them look green, but mountains are mostly gray underneath. Stone we will sometimes climb simply to stand on top of. Sometimes at sunset, it looks like mountain and cloud are the same. When it does, please sit with me and watch. Lakes are best for swimming and rivers for fishing, but oceans wash away feelings you cannot find names for. No matter what, drying your feet of cold water will make them feel better than you can imagine, especially after a day spent walking uneven ground. Reaching the end of days, it is common to ask, why are we here? Where are we going? How do we get there? There are lots of answers. You'll have to find most of them yourself. It will involve lots of walking on uneven ground. It might involve trying to walk across water. You could do worse than wet feet. There will be sobbing and silence, unkindness, love, and laughter. You could do lots worse. You could do lots. Do lots. When our oldest daughter was born, she's now 13. And I'm not exactly sure how that happened, but she's now 13. When she was little, we used to take her to the Museum of Fine Arts in Boston. I'm talking, she's like little, And that was just our weekly routine. We'd go and we'd walk around and she would just get to see. And as she got older and paid a little bit more attention, her favorite painting became Watson and the Shark by John Singleton Copley. And for those of you here in Boston who have visited the MFA, you know this painting. It's huge and it's kind of scary and bloody. And the shark doesn't quite look right because Copley gave him lips because he'd never actually seen a shark. And that weird detail actually makes the shark look even more scary. But to our daughter, she thought this was a great story. And she used to make me tell her the story as part of our bedtime routine. And I just felt that had to be captured in some way. And so I wrote a poem called Watson and the Shark. Watson and the Shark. From the leather bench, legs swinging a foot from the floor, she brings her gaze to the shark. Its hideous teeth, its misplaced lips and mistaken shapes, the sinister way its mass slips beneath the surface to surface again as a scythe-shaped fin. I follow strokes of light converging on the crew. Every body strains to save the naked boy, but one. His face hauntingly matter of fact. The pact a sailor makes with the sea, a tacit acceptance of death in all its disgraceful forms. If she sees what I'm seeing, she's not saying. Now she paces, takes in detail to piece together, then climbs back onto the bench and clambers off again. She stops and stares, bloodied leg, sailor's hands outstretched, Watson reaching out towards something past the boat, past clippers, slave ships, masts like crosses and holy towers on shore, past the horizon and its amassing clouds, where waves vanish into the rising sun the shark has come from and will return to after playing with the man who's falling asleep in the water. Isn't it silly? She asks as she turns away from the canvas and smiles up at a man who has stopped to look and listen to headphones, explaining Copley's shift from portraits to works of historical ambition, myth made from the everyday. And she tells him the boo-boo's not so bad. They'll get him in the boat and take good care of his leg. The stranger nods, not quite sure, I'm sure, of what's taking place, but maybe grateful everything will be okay, and walks away as my daughter settles on the bench and waits for the painting to change, for the sun to rise, for me to take her hand and let her lead me on. I'll just read one more poem. And it's the title poem from the collection, No Small Comfort. And before I do it, I want to say thank you again to Sandy and to Dorothy for having me here. And thanks again to Maureen for your poems. This is really a great way to end my day, to start off with teacher conferences, parent-teacher conferences all day long, and then to get to share some poems and hear some other beautiful poems. It's just a great way to end the week. So thank you again. No small comfort. Branches bare on Friday, managed to bud by Monday morning. My weekend hike beside a creek to find a centuries-old grindstone, not nearly as impressive as winter dormant blossoms making their sudden yellow show against blue sky. My newest lines about seasons spinning into place with storm after storm, no match for photosynthesis, setting itself in motion again. Every tree spreads its leaves and converts the atmosphere to food using water and sunlight, feeding itself and releasing what I need to breathe. Me? In a couple of weeks, I can grow a beard that catches crumbs from a toasted steak and cheese. It's impossible. Turning the corner to millions of these little flags unfurling, not to be impressed by a world that makes itself over each day. It baffles, befuddles to think of living, breathing creatures seeming all but dead all winter, one day flourishing colors and textures and odors I hardly recognize after months of shielding my eyes from the glare of snow and ice, turning away from bare branches and the longing empty space between them makes. In a mind made numb by winter, it's easy to accept doing the same thing over and over and hoping for different results as a version of insanity. Really, it's no small comfort to know that what grows before our eyes keeps going. Trees coming into bloom, or 2-day whiskers on my chin, or the skin on my hands scored by scars. Under all, there's little difference. In a world that cuts us, every last one of us, down, it's no small comfort to see what we see and be overcome. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Brian. So much drama in everyday nature. Wow. Our next reader is Frannie Lindsay. Her 6th volume of poems, The Snow's Wife, is now available from Calvin Carey Press. Her previous titles are If Mercy, Our Vanishing, Benjamin, and she's won the Benjamin Saltman Award with that, Mayweed, from Mayweed, Mayweed, the Word Works Washington Prize, Lamb from Perugia, the Perugia Prize, and Where She Always Was, the Mae Swenson Award from Utah State University Press in 2004. She's the 2008 winner in poetry of the Missouri Review Prize. Her work has appeared in the American Poetry Review, Salamander, Poetry International, the Harvard Review, and many other journals. It also appears in Best American Poetry 2014. Frannie teaches workshops on the poetry of grief and trauma at the Cambridge Center for Adult Education. She is a classical pianist. Frannie, welcome.
Thank you, Sandy. I know you can't see me. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. This will be interesting, giving a reading, giving an invisible reading, but I will do it. I loved listening to the other readers. Gosh, what gorgeous work you do. I was just sitting there stunned, and thank you. And I want to see it on paper. It's just such gorgeous work. So thanks to both of you. I decided when I was putting together the poems for this reading that I've done so many readings in the past year or two from the new book that I would sort of wander a little bit afield. I would take poems that I'm still working on. I would take poems that I don't read very often, and I would just sort of lump them all together and see what I had. And so that's what I did. And when I read them aloud, I realized that what I had was loosely defined a prayer cycle. So many of these poems are prayer-like, and I just found that kind of interesting. I'm going to start with a recent poem to my dog who died. It's called Farewell Blessing. Farewell Blessing. Lord, receive the soul of this good dog who comes to you in unmarred innocence. May she now rest her chin against your knee's great ledge. May she be met by friends, remembered and new friends. May her leash be without end, her collar easy, paws forever fleet. May her panting remain close to those alone at Sunday's dusk, so it may warm them by the flameless hearth of her forbearing peace. May she sleep within the perfect oval of the moon's light on a window seat, and each star know her by its light along the pasture of her wintermost fur. Lord, receive her, run to her with the exuberance of little children. Then let her stay exactly who she is, her mystery, her everydayness. So I think I'm going to pretty much just read these sequentially and not say too much about them. God with us. God with us. You will know this child by the heart it has pieced together, sticks and a single tear of fire before we were made. You will know this child by all who claim to have orphaned it, and by how it has never needed a name or a pony. This poem is to my husband shortly before he died, and about his struggles. Refuge. You didn't have your cane. The dark March wind made you weak. You only had a little way to go. You leaned against the stucco wall I saw once in your travel books. You wanted aspirin. Your scarf was much too tight, your hat gone. Something more was wrong. You lost your wedding ring. I brought a cup of water and 2 pills. I brought them through the snow. I brought a cap that didn't fit. You should have been slouched in your shadow's boat, somewhat asleep, a reed between your teeth, The snow, had it been kind, would fall again like old magnolia petals, loosening all at once when it was time, and go on falling, burying your boot tracks. In November, everything departs. Behold the sunshine draping its already weary cloak over the noontime pond. Behold the peregrine's gaze, clear of rumor. Behold the brambled railroad track at the end of wander. Behold the black dog watchfully curled around the soup bone she's worried down to its lifeless gleam. The plaid shroud of her blanket. I have been willing the finches to fall silent and join the sullen wet of the leaves. Willing my friends to keep out of the way, stars to keep out of the way of the night clicking along its rainy avenue. But behold too the bosomy gloom of libraries, the lamps so earnest and adequate over the little desks. I can bear to look as happiness fades from its tedious season. I can endure each vesper bell tonguing against its brave lip, the thrill in words like reckon, atone, and widow, how they are one another's encrypted siblings, the things they know, the things they hearken. Okay, so now I'm going to lighten it up a little bit. Once in a while, I will make up a boyfriend. And when I was riding the 73 bus to work every day, I made up a boyfriend, and he was hot and wonderful. And he had no idea that I existed, and that was the joy of it. This poem is called Jeff. I like the man who rides the same bus as I do, gets off one stop before me, has silver hair, a downy black beard, wears mostly jeans and a linen shirt. I like his Birkenstocks, wire rims, and frowsy eyebrows. I like the fatigue around his mouth, as if he's afraid his daughter might have anorexia. I like watching the things he is watching. Women pushing along the fold-up grocery carts, almost spilling their boxes of cereal. Signs for the same lost cat. I like his air of dreamed upness. I like kidnapping him eloping, having some children, but first a puppy and lots of sex. I like the chit chat. We never stop or start. And his make-believe name, Jeff, spelled right with a G. And I like to cast off the gloom of my lonesome truth, pay both our fares, and take him home. This is another sort of fantasy wish poem. Brushing the horse. I am tired of praying for a world not ours to break. The hushed hawk sweep, blackly lifting 200 schoolgirls into the breathless Nigerian moonlight. The 14-year-old who has murdered his beautiful algebra teacher. For the soft-eyed extinctions, we age in the glare of the news. Give me instead the floor of a barn in the gray of heaven, wet with the scuttle of hand-fed rabbits, their twitch and thrust. Give me sparrows' wings scattering hay, the gentle chill of the rafters, the tumbled and redolent towels for carrying peahens back to their safe, dim coops. The hinges arthritic with rust. A cracked bar of soap by the cold water sink. The sun going in like a wife who needs to peel the potatoes. The last truck gone for the day. A plaid shirt draped on a gate. A broom whose bristles flip like the hair of a girl who is ready to go to the Friday dance at the Grange. Give me a roan mare's cheek, the smell of apple of patience. How am I doing on time?
Fine, I think. I think you're at about 12 or 13 minutes now.
Okay. The end of the walk to Bethlehem. It has been days since we have slept or spoken of the rumors fluttering, unchecked as moths among our lamps, while we rinsed the sheep and latched them, damp still in their pens, the dreary morning we set out. And we want only to turn back and to believe again in nothing, but we see the outline of a stable, almost real, hunched against the desert cold as if unworthy of the trembling star that crowns its roof. So we press on, now stumbling, now holding one another up, and draw as near the cradle as the ox will let us, and set down at last our gilded weariness. I think I'm going to read you just 3 more short ones. When I was a little girl, my twin sister always, when she was about 10, when 10-year-old want this more than anything, she wanted to be a horse. She wanted to have a horse. She wanted to just do, be, and envelop everything horse. And so for one birthday, we promised, my parents said that they would give her a horse. And what did they do? Silly parents. They went out and they got her a horse book. Well, she was beside herself, and she went into the bathroom with the horse book and cried and cried and cried because it wasn't a horse. And that stayed with me. So this is called For a Child Longing to Be a Horse. How tragic to be without hooves, but the wind has its own permission to riffle your drowsing curls, the same way it riffles the quiet of manes and tails, the trampled hay, and the scent of oversweet rotted apples. And instead of angels, 2 Appaloosas at home in their breath watch over your sleep as if through a paddock's sun-warped door. From your closet hook, your bandana and lanyard rustle. Tomorrow, as you button your dress before school, you will catch yourself whinnying a little. You will never again need a word for meta. This too is a horse poem, but it's a poem in memoriam. Clydesdale. The angel who bore my sister away was a Clydesdale gelding, flanks broad in the evening peace. He stood in a meadow off Star Route 3 on the way out of Boulder, not knowing the colorless air already adrift wasn't a willow limb's sweep across his mane, but a dimming girl on his back, or that I'd stopped less to offer my apple left from lunch than to bow my head to the Lord who tends mares at their midnight birthings, the Lord who steadies the stick-slender legs of newborns ambling wetly over dark pastures, the Lord who now lay August's still palm across the day's smooth back like a coarse, clean blanket. And this last poem is a short poem. And it's not really a prayer. Sunset. For once they aren't drinking. Instead, they are taking each other's clothes off with balletic, oh, I'm going to start that again. Sunset. For once they aren't drinking. Instead, they are taking each other's clothes off with balletic awkwardness, as if they knew exactly how frightened to be by joy, then letting them drift, the drab and precisely tailored trousers, the crayon bright skirt, slowly out any window willing to open. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Frannie. Beautiful. Thank you so much for being here. We now go into the portion where we can chat among ourselves or in the written chat. I think we have 10 minutes, right, Susanna, roughly?
Give or take. I mean, however long
Yep.
it goes on.
Exactly. If people want to ask the poets any questions, or if the readers want to ask us any questions, now's the time. I should tell you too that our next